All right, everybody, welcome to Behind the Bar. I'm your host, Danny Johnson, where we look at your favorite dry bar comedians. Behind the Bar is sponsored by RX Solutions. If you're looking for, if you're underinsured or uninsured and want up to 75% off your next prescription, go to rxsolutions.online. My guest today, very funny Tom Simmons, whose dry bar special is Peace, Love, and Whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I
And
forgot that it was named that, to be honest. That's interesting.
Yeah, no, I just watched it again this morning. And so, first of all, for those listening, I've known Tom for, I don't know, 20 years, 15
Yeah,
years.
yeah. Like you were just starting comedy, weren't you?
Yeah. And Tom's gone on to not only have a dry bar special, but he's been on Comedy Central as a writer for the Miss Pat show. He was on Single Drunk Female on HULU multiple times. People just keep hiring you, and I don't
I
get
don't
it.
understand it. I really don't get it.
I don't get it.
I was thinking about that the other day. It's like, how do I keep, I don't know. It's kind of cool. I remember when I used to read comedy writing books. Like I remember I'd read the Gene Paret and the Melvin Heltzer
Yeah.
comedy writing books. And I remember being very encouraged by, like, as long as you can write jokes, there's so many ways to sort of make ends meet as a joke writer. And I always thought, whatever, I'm doing stand-up, you know what I mean? Like it, and now looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, there really, somehow there is. Like over time, you just keep getting work. You get a dry bar, you get a thing, you do San Francisco. Next thing you know, you're doing writing on the Miss Pat show. It's cool.
And you're in the Carolinas, right? North?
Yes. I'm Greensboro, North Carolina, the capital of show business. I don't know if you've heard of it.
But a lot of these opportunities for both you and other friends of ours are in Atlanta. Is that like the second Hollywood now?
I think maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the regular Hollywood's like. So I mean, I'm not really. I don't really feel like I'm in show business. You know what I mean? So I'm a comedian that somehow did it from living in a different part of the country, like you did. You know what I mean? Like you moved to New York, and then you were like, you know what? I would rather be with a woman that I love and have a family, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then then divorce that woman, and then move on. You know?
Right. That worked out.
Yeah. I remember how in love you were. And I remember saying like that thing that you say to friends that you probably shouldn't say. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to meet the woman that's ending your comedy career. and I could just feel how like irritated she was at that. And you were kind of, to be honest, because you don't think of it that way. You think,
I think
I got it all.
I'm in New York.
Yeah.
I'm doing spots. It's funny because I want to say Mike Spivak, you know who he is. He said something to her too in person, like quit keeping your husband off the road or something like that. He's really funny.
Yeah.
And and I was like, it's okay, everything's fine.
Yeah. Now, looking back, would you wish you'd have taken that advice, or are you like, yeah, all right, that was worth it for those years that I had of just bliss?
Well, I have my son, so you know what I mean? So
I do know what you mean.
You have one of those.
Yes.
But I would, my answer would be no if I didn't have my son.
Right.
Because that was the end result of it. I kind of think of it like that,
Right. Okay.
And now what am I going to be 50 soon and move back to New York and do spots when he's older?
And of course, no. Now it's evolved to the place where you can continue to work and get better and find and get work by just putting out content from where you are.
Yeah. Dude, I forgot when I watched your dry bar special, I totally forgot and laughed out loud so hard. I wish the closer, the AGT, the America's Got Talent.
Oh yeah.
Email exchange was, first of all, I did not know about it. I'd never, because I had heard, you and I have been chatting and we used to write a lot together and perform a lot together. So some of the jokes I recognize and I've heard, we worked together or whatever. And then when I got to that, I'm like, wow, I've never heard that one. And it was just so brilliantly done. I love it that it's so real.
Yes, it's funny you say, like, it's really just me reading the email exchange and then tightening it a little bit here and there because I got a little rambly sometimes because I'd be like, I'm not fit for your show.
Right.
Like, and then I would literally be like, but, and then I'd backtrack on that and be like, but I really think I'm funny and blah, blah, blah. And I would like the opportunity, you know what I mean? Like all those things.
I have a lot to offer, whatever. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I ran into a similar thing with the Dry Bar special. I'm like, I'm not really the comic for you guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've sort of learned that over the years, but I was determined to figure out how to do what I do totally clean.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a totally clean client. And it's not about the clean. I figured out over the years too of where I work and whatever, and doing these kind of situations where, first of all, if you at first I was like, that needs that word there because of the emphasis, you know, and then slowly you learn, there's other words that you can use there and other expressions.
Yeah.
It's about it getting that emotion out as opposed to getting that word out. Almost always. There's a few instances where you need the line.
I could tell the spots that you had to not curse in some of the jokes that I remember.
Yes.
Like where you normally would.
And I figured out a way to sort of be like, motherfucker, like I just don't say the word, right? And then I cut it off like an Eminem song or whatever, like on radio, you know. And then, but what else I ran into, which I wasn't really ready for, was the topics. It's the topics that, like on a ship or in a corporate or whatever, it's the subject matter. I've sort of made a living figuring out how to do sort of, to me, bigger talk, some controversial talk, but because I don't know, because being on the road for so many years and fighting against crowds that disagree, at some point I decided not to be the yell them down comic and to just figure out how to say what I want to say and make them laugh and make people who don't agree with me laugh.
Yeah.
Which, you know, so I still have trouble with some of the issue stuff in these sort of situations, but I work around that. And the AJT thing was sort of an example of that, like literally sitting in a hotel room with my buddy Stuart Huff and being like, I would love to, obviously you'd love to do a show like that and explode and do it right. But we all know from doing Last Comic Standing audition and all these things all down the ride that it's not what it appears to be. And I know they're not the industry has seen me. They're not looking for what I do, or they weren't. So I was just like, no, I'm not the comic for you.
Yeah. And you have plenty. I mean, you have, I don't know, not countless, but what, 6, 7 comedy albums.
So I have the material. I just,
Yeah.
And I think people, like when I first did Dry Bar, were like, with friends of mine were like, oh, you could do it. Like same with the ships. Like there's a little bit of like my friends like Danny Bevins or Paul Hoover are like, well, okay, if you can do it, then I can do that. You know what I mean? Like there's a perception that I am a little more controversial than I really am, I think.
No, I think you do a great job of playing both sides. Even some recent clips I've seen of yours on your Instagram with the Roe versus Wade, you're taking both sides a little bit.
Because to me, that is, I obviously have a strong opinion, but I also know that I'm wrong.
Right.
Like, and I have the same thing in almost every issue where I'm like, I see it this way. And I want to look at it from as many angles as I can and question my own idea. But I also want to be like, you can't do that bullcrap to people, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, the idea is because when you do jokes like that, and to me, you separate the room unless you figure out how not to, right? So if I'm like, my opinion is different than yours on it, then you're going to instantly shut down really and not laugh. So I have to sort of soften that on the way in, do the joke that sort of everybody laughs at, and you're not really sure what I think, you know what I mean? And then it's like, I kind of think this and this. And I think most people do, especially when you're having the discussion.
Yeah.
And then I do the rest of the jokes. And then it's like, oh, he tricked me into laughing about the thing I disagree with.
Yeah. And a Bird does a great job of that, obviously. I don't know if you saw his
I did. I saw his version of like the both sides thing. And I'm like,
the cake.
It's so much better than my version of that. Like sometimes I watch Bird and I'm like, oh, I have a better version of that joke, you know, to me. And that, we all have that, like we believe in our thing. And that was an example to me of like, oh, same premise and he did it more real,
right?
Less jokey and more real. And I was like, it's so. I love seeing comedy that's better than mine, but it also is a little like, ugh,
yeah. I remember feeling like an idiot years ago. I was working with Richard Lewis, and he would do his set, and record it, the audio, and then in between shows he would go back to his hotel and listen to the set and come back with new punchlines for the jokes. And
It's working. That's working,
yeah.
right?
And so, but I remember like in the back of the room that I was like, I thought of some like a punchline for him. I started to jot it down. I got the waitress, like, give me a pen, give me a pen. I thought, and he delivered a punchline that was 1,000 times better than anything I had ever thought.
Yes.
And I just crumpled the paper. I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Yes.
Why am I
Yes.
even trying?
I can't help it, man. When I think of a line, I'm like, oh, I got to tell this person. Like, I remember finding Seinfeld on Facebook, like trying to find him and send him some tags that I watched him do in the Bahamas. I'm like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
you know, but I just like joke writing so much that I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this, maybe
I
this.
tried to give, remember Rob Schneider from Saturday Night Live? I worked
Right.
open for him not too long ago, and I tried to give him a line that I thought was a perfect callback, and he kind of dismissed, just dismissed me.
Because he doesn't trust you. You know, I find that on the Miss Pat show too. Even like when we're writing and pitching joke ideas, like on the floor and stuff, you can get on a run where you're like, you really hit with one, and then it's like they trust you. And then it's like, then they trust you more. And it's like, then you do 3 or 4 and they instantly go try them. And then you can do 6, 7, 8 in a row. But as soon as you pitch one that tanks, the next time they're a little bit more hesitant about rushing onto the floor to pitch it to the actor, and
wow.
it's fun. It's funny to watch, because comedy writing is so like, for me at least, it's write almost every joke that I can think.
Yeah.
My mind just, I'm just keep pitching. And to me, it's a quantity thing, ends up equaling quality. So
yes,
sometimes you screw yourself by pitching 4 or 5 duds in a row, but that's just, that's how I write.
Yeah. I mean, I always wondered how a stand-up, or I mean, you specifically, like, how do you get hired as a writer, right? So someone knocks on my door tomorrow, I was like, I want you to write for it. I'm like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like, what? Did you dabble in it first and kind of sit in once in a while?
No, I just joke write, you know what I mean? And so over the years, being a comedian and working the road with comedians, like you've had it probably too, some version of, if I ever get a show, you're a great writer, I'm gonna have you. And none of them ever get a show, or they get a show and they realize I can't hire a comic to come in and write because he's not a TV writer. And then, but Miss Pat was just different. And she likes to give people chances and to help give them a chance to open a door for them so that they can go through and then do something with it. So she likes to do that. And she recognized that I was funny to her, or I brought funny out of her. Sometimes that's the thing, right? When you're hanging out with a comic, it's like they make you funnier somehow by the way that they bring it out of you, sometimes. Like, I don't know if that you do that for me, you know what I mean? And I would hope that I do, like when we're hanging out, it's just, we generate more comedy.
Yeah.
So we had that as friends for both of each other, I think. And then when she got the show, she just, she could see I was a joke writer, and she insisted that I be a part of it. And she sort of stacked the room with, it was interesting. It was like some comedians, and then, like, I would say, like the TV writers that really know story. Not that they don't know jokes, but they know story, and I don't know story, so I couldn't sit. I'm learning it through the seasons of being around it, But to me, I'm a joke guy, and I can get right off structure that's handed to me or whatever, or pitch stuff in the room and like that. So there's other strengths that I have that maybe a story person doesn't.
I would imagine it's nerve-wracking because your first writers meeting, is the script already written for the episode, or there's a
very first time I did anything with her was she went through a couple different like writers. One of the guys from the Everybody Hates Chris, and then another girl who's been in television for a long time. So she sold the show to a production company or whatever, and then they hook her with writers, and she got close with 2 of the scripts, and one of them they were going to do, and she was like, she just wasn't feeling it. She was like, her spirit didn't connect with it. And then that somehow through Lee Daniels found this kid, Jordan Cooper, who had a play in New York, and he was like, I need to hook you up with Miss Pat. And they just really clicked. And this guy is like, he studied television his whole life the way we've gone after comedy. You know what I mean? He knows like all the episodes of shows from the 70s on. He knows like how they were shot. He's just a savant of television and storytelling and connecting emotionally. So so he used Miss Pat's story and her jokes to write this pilot. So when we shot the pilot, I went out so I'd been through some, like, I've obviously read it a few times, but when we got out there, it was just the pilot's written. You have to do the rewrites and punch ups, and then rewrites and punch ups. But when the room started for the show, once they got the show, then the room started. There was a showrunner and Jordan and Miss Pat, and so it was like it's just, you kind of start from scratch, and then it's like everybody sort of pitches ideas for what the shows will be, and then those 15 of those ideas get pitched up the lines to the network and the executive, and then they pick the 10 that they're going to go with, and then it starts from there. You start outlining it and building the shows and the story A and the story B. And I was just a pain in the butt the whole time because I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm just like, it needs to be real. Like Miss Pat's funnier driving to Chick-fil-A than anything we'll write, and so, I had to learn to keep my mouth shut and to listen more,
Yeah.
I'm not saying I wasn't right, but you know what I mean? There's a thing about television writing that I have to learn and had to learn, which is that there's a story and an arc, and they need to get somewhere. And I'm in there like, you know what happened to me today? I didn't learn anything, right? I just had a day, I'm sort of that sort of attitude. Like, why do we have to learn something and make, and have it? But I was just wrong. So, but I learned that, and they were patient with me, and I made up for it in joke writing. So that's sort of
good.
Season 2 and 3, I have an episode in season 3 that I wrote, but I was mostly doing punch up. I was a punch up writer.
Yeah.
And that's my wheelhouse. Just the script shows up.
Yeah.
They start reading it, and then there's obviously rewrites, and then it's just listening to it over and over, like watching a comic set.
Yeah.
And being, like you said, write down like, oh, here's a line. She should say it this way. Oh, the punchline needs to be the last word. If you flip like all that stuff that you do comedy writing wise.
And that's fun.
Yes, it is fun. And it's boring as crap some days where you're sitting there like, they don't really need anything. It's more like, but all week it's like, I just never stop pitching, like to the point of annoyance.
How that must have been hard to write your own episode.
Well, yes and no. I mean, by the time you get the episode, the room has basically outlined it for you, and they're very like the outline. It's been pitched up the line, and the outline is really broken down into what the scenes are going to be. So when it's your time to write the episode, you're basically handed they call it a beat sheet, or an outline basically, and it's basically like 3 whole pages of like act 1, act 2, and this is what happens within it. And there's a few jokes that have been pitched through the room and the story. And then for me anyway, it's about like, I just sort of type that up, like, and I put it in script form. And then I start to add dialogue about whatever I think of as I'm writing. And then you get done and you're like, that's pretty good. We got the pages. It's like a flow. And then it's terrible. And you have to rewrite and then bring it to, it's about the rewriting and the refining, and then every character has its own voice. So you got to find those voices. It's work.
And I would imagine it's really difficult if every character has a storyline from previous episodes. So you can't do anything that's counter to what has happened in the past.
Yes. And that's sort of another thing I end up doing a lot is like, I somehow that stuff has stuck with me from watching the episodes over and over and over as they're made. Like, oh, he doesn't drink. Remember, he doesn't blah, blah, blah. They're getting ready to drive. She can't drive. She's having like that. I noticed that sort of stuff. Like, oh, that blender wasn't here because they hadn't won that yet. You know what I mean? Like those, like whatever those things are that they have people to do already, the continuity people. But I noticed that too. I noticed that stuff. I remember the story. We did that joke in season 1 on episode 107, right? So can we write something else there? Because we've already kind of done that, and it's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or I'll call back to a thing that happened. I'm pretty good at that, remembering those little details.
You're smart, Tom.
Well, that's, I'm not smart. My podcast is called Dumbest Guy in the Room, by the way. Because I'm both,
What led to Single Drunk Female? Because I didn't know that you even.
I don't. This is a funny story, dude. On Miss Pat, we needed, quite frankly, we needed a white guy to be a comedian and an MC. And then there was a quick scene where they needed a white guy comic backstage. And this, it's cheaper to use me, right? Because I'm there and blah, 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 whatever. So, and I'm a comedian. That's who I am. So I did a small role in 2 episodes. One, I was just sort of in the background. I was like, Miss Pat, you know what I mean? Like I introduced her or something. And then in the next one, I had a small scene with her backstage, and I did a lot of pantomiming stand up while a scene happens. So, you know what I mean? So, and I guess from that, I got a call one day from a talent booker from Disney. And I was like, what? Like I listened to the message. I obviously sent it to voicemail. I don't recognize that number, right? And so I get the message and I call her, and she, off of that clip or whatever, they needed a bartender to play this role, and the lady that ran the production company, Angie Bones, was like, "Oh, this Tom was really good in this scene. You know what I mean? He was good at doing what we kind of need him to do, and he fits the role." And it's really about them on the show being like, they have a specific character in mind, and then they're like, "Oh, this guy fits that. This guy is that."
Right.
And so I even tried to talk the lady. I'm like, "Are you sure?" She was like, "Can you send me some of your reel?" And I go, "I don't really have a reel. I'm a comedian." So I sent her a couple of this. So then there's that I did. I sent her a couple clips of stand up, probably some from my dry bar.
Right.
And then I went down to the local comedy club and got behind the bar and sort of acted out the scene really quick on my phone and sent her that. And then she was like, "Yeah, this is what we want. So you got this." And I was like, "I'm not an actor. So are you sure that you want me to do?" "I'm not." And I was like, "I don't want to talk you out of this." And she was like, "Well, you're not going to talk us out of it. They specifically asked for you, for you to do it." And I get a lot. So
it's not just it's 2 episodes so far,
and it's 3 episodes, and I did one that they paid me for, and I was in, and then the stuff got cut from it.
Yeah.
So it was interesting.
Speaking part, which is
great. It was kind of cool.
And it was you. Cool. So when I'm watching it and you're delivering your lines, you're Tom. You're not whatever your character's name.
Yes. I was like, I'm going to be how I would be at a bar if I'm sick of drunk people. Right. And I want my money from them. I want them to quit screwing up my place and to get off my table. I don't have time for you, So that's I was
especially when you delivered, when you said something about being sober ain't cheap.
Yeah.
Yes. Or whatever that line. I was like, because you're looking right at the camera. I'm like, that's Tom. That's Tom.
So that's what I tried to do. Like, I can't act. I don't want to say I can't act because I don't really know what acting is, because I don't do acting. I do stand up. But
right.
So it was more about just being like trying to be me.
Yeah.
Like, this is how I would say it. And then that fits, like, that's what I mean. They cast me like, oh, this is the guy we want. So I didn't have to really do acting except know my lines. And then it seems to be not to be aware of the cameras around you, but be aware of the cameras, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's just from doing stand up and knowing how to boom, 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 do lines with some inflection and blah, blah, blah. Like, I was reading this, like, this isn't funny. What's the jokes here? Why are they're telling me I'm funny, but I know there's no jokes. They're not saying anything funny. And and then I wasn't trying to think of how to say it funny. I was just like, all right, this is what you want, And then they were like, oh, that's funny. That's what we want. I'm like, okay.
I was watching it. My girlfriend got a kick out of me getting all riled up watching it, because I was so excited to see you, And then, of course, I go into, I've been doing local commercials for 15 years, taking some acting classes, and Tom doesn't even want to do it. Tom doesn't even want to do that.
Yeah.
He's and a speaking part on HULU. Yes. Good for him. Good for Tom.
It's funny you say that, because I did debate doing it. Like, I was like, I had to cancel work. I had to cancel a Vegas week and a Sarasota week. And it was like, I love doing stand up, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I have to cancel these weeks, and then they end up not doing it that week and then pushing it back and cancel another week. And I'm just like, I want to go do stand up. What am I? I'm not this. And then everybody was like, that'd be stupid not to. It gives you a credit. So I'm glad I did it. They're fun. And it's like, oh, I think I could do this. And I've learned watching the Pat show, like how to, things like blocking and
right,
how to deliver a thing and what it's like on set and like how like how many times they need you to do the same line or do it a couple different ways, so you just through osmosis start to pick this stuff up, and I'm hoping, but you can see the actors are so good. Like the girl in Single Drunk Female it was like, wow, I really believed you there. Like it catches you off guard. Like she's good, and then on the Miss Pat show, those characters, they're so good, man. It just blows me. One of the other writers gives me crap. He's like, Tom, stop being surprised that the actors can act. Like, I can't help it. That's just so good. Yeah. It's just they get laughs out of thin air where I don't think there is a laugh. They're just so good, especially Tammy. I can't even say especially. They're all really good in their own ways, and it's fun to watch as they come into their characters. It's more fun than I thought it would be, to be honest. Yeah, I'm a stand-up purist,
But it's that I think the more TV spots we get and build that recognition or whatever. I mean, ultimately, you become a little bit more and more of a draw, which feeds the stand-up career, which is what you really want to do. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's part of what that's about. Like that was the appeal of Dry Bar too. Yeah, it's like, do I want to do material that I've done for 20 years? Like do the clean, you know what I mean? Do the jokes that, to be honest, like I've stopped doing a lot of that stuff, right? So it's like I'd stopped doing it. When you work a cruise ship, you got to do 5 different half hours or 5 different 40-minute sets, and some clean and some dirt, you know what I mean? And so you use everything you've ever written, which I love doing that on some level, but it's like you're also like, God, I'm still doing that headshot that you have from 20 years ago. You're like, I'm still doing some of that guy's jokes, and artistically there's a disappointment in yourself for doing. I don't know if you feel that, but there's like like, what am I doing? I got to get better, But so, but the Dry Bar was like, okay, that can help, right? I hate seeing all these specials and I'm not one of them, right? So it's like, I can do that, you know what I mean? I'm going to do that, and I can figure out how to do it clean. So that was my goal. And I gave them 2 totally different sets, and they used the first one, and the second one was more like the environment and guns, and all that kind of the Federal Reserve Bank, like all that stuff, but clean, Mm-hmm. They didn't use that or ever get me those tapes, which I was like, oh, that's good quality, But it is what it is, I'm glad that people got to see that material. I'm proud of it,
Yeah, I like I don't know if I told you this yet or not. I told somebody else I was interviewing about this because they're so touchy with the language. There's a joke, I forget the joke you do. You're arguing with your wife and you go, in your actual act, non-Dry Bar, you go, Jesus Christ. And you replaced it in the special with cheese and rice.
Yes.
However, the person doing the words on the bottom of the screen, subtitles, put Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think I like at some point I stopped ever on anything I do because of so then there's this and blah blah blah, those videos. I just stopped looking at comments at all, because I don't want to. It sucks that you don't read them, because people genuinely want to say that they enjoyed it and you can interact. So I do some of that, and then it's like I just stopped because I don't want to argue with someone that's like, he said blah blah blah. I'm like, no, I didn't. It's you come off. I came off stage one night somewhere and same kind of thing. They're like, you can't do those jokes about Jesus. I'm like, they're offensive. I'm like, what part was offensive? The part where I say he's about love and nonviolence, or the part where I prove to an atheist that he's real? Which part was offensive? You're not listening to the jokes. You're not listening to the points that, he spoke out against money. These are things that are real, like these, that he was about love and nonviolent, like those, even in the Dry Bar special, you can hear, like when I'm like talking about not hitting your kids and using talking about Jesus as a case of nonviolence.
Right.
Just hearing the name, like people are like, "Uh-oh,
where's he going?
You're not listening to what I'm saying. That's
Right.
fine, you know." So, but yeah, there's, but then somebody gets mad about it and is like, "You can't say that. I didn't. The guy typed that wrong."
Yeah, that's fantastic. I got the biggest kick out of that because I was like, he was so conscious to change that to cheese and rice. That was a level of effort that he had to think of to do, and then they type Jesus Christ.
Yes, and then they go back and change it back.
You
stupid mother muckers, and then that, like, you're going to change that to me cursing.
I got some nasty comments. I got a few nasty comments. 99% are positive, but I responded. I kind of got into a little back and forth with some two folks in particular. One was poking fun at my weight,
right,
and then a bunch of fans jumped in my defense, so I just left it. You know, I kind of like half addressed it, half didn't. And then another lady was a cuckoo bird saying something about, how dare you let someone with tattoos perform
cheese and rice.
Yeah, cheese and rice on a faith-based, you know, thing. And I was like, if you're referring to, I quoted, if you're referring to Leviticus, you know, about they shouldn't mark their body in worship of another god. It's not, do not mark your body. So, you know, you're wrong.
Oh yes, that's that. People are good. People are pretty good at being like, yeah, you're right. I'm wrong. Sorry about that. People are really good with that. Your special was really like you have the thing that I love that you do. You're just so comfortable, and you never seem nervous or unsure if a joke's funny. It's just like you're just comfortable, you know. And and it came across in your special too. You know, sometimes it's like for me, I felt like, this is a little flat. There's a flat, and then you start thinking, this is a little flat, and you try a little. And I went the other way where it's like, all right, I'll reel it in. I'll be even less sort of performy, and then, you know, they'll come around. And they ended up coming around in the special in the end, you know. But I felt like they were. It was like they were a little resistant, you know. And it's just because you're just not totally at ease from lack of preparation or lack of like, I can't say these words or these things, or like, I didn't even expect them to take that wrong. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like a thing you really sort of got caught off guard by, like, that made them uncomfortable. That makes no crowd uncomfortable, you know? So there's a little, like, you get in your head a little bit while when the cameras are rolling. You know?
Yeah. I was surprised at how well, and I'm not saying it killed, but it did well enough. The line about, you're talking to your son, don't do that, I'm gonna have to hit her, referring to your wife.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's set up very well, but I expected that to just die, and it didn't. But it was, I don't know the percentages. It wasn't. It went over better than I thought it would.
Well, again, with that joke, like that joke is like that, because that joke is, I'm talking about nonviolence, and I would never hit my son, and then I'm like, you better, or I'm gonna, you know, I'm being nonviolent to my son and be like, yeah, but if you don't shape up, I'm gonna have to smack her, you know, like, obviously I'm not gonna do that. That's the punchline, you know. I would and then, but I like to use that to get into, because they'll laugh at that, or they'll get like, ooh, and then it's like, wait a minute, you're pro hitting children. Because they get uncomfortable when I say we shouldn't hit our kid, you know, they get uncomfortable with that, but they're okay with hitting them. So I like to sort of point that stuff out, you know what I mean?
And the dumpster joke too, that's why they make kids cute. That went over well. You also,
because it's real. You've had a kid, you just, sometimes you love them and you can't squeeze and tell them how much you love them enough, and then other time you just want to toss them through a wall, and you don't. But you know what I mean? There is that emotion of like, oh my God, you know? And so I think those are universal. That's not controversial, but yes, those kind of things. Sometimes the crowd also realizes that there's a recording happen. So the crowd gets a little extra defensive for this made up kid that I'm throwing in a dumpster, right? You know what I mean? And so that's what happens when the cameras are rolling, you know what I mean? You got those things happening, and then you lose some of the dexterity of being able to go anywhere. And, you know, so, you know, and then the second show I was like, all right, I did that thing. Now I'm going to do the jokes that I'm the most proud of and do them clean. And then they didn't use any of that stuff.
Yeah, they told me
with
different.
The AJT thing, you know, to me.
Yeah, but they told me different. Like when I did mine, they were like, do obviously same outfit, both shows, same jokes, same order, both shows. That's what I was told.
Yeah, and I might have been one of the reasons why they were telling people that, because I didn't do that, because I was like, oh, they already got that one. I want to, you know, that one was fine. I'll do the other stuff.
The guy that I filmed with, the other comic, his special's still not out. I don't know if it will be, but it's almost like he didn't read the packet of guidelines.
Really?
Or he read it and just did the opposite. He wasn't dirty at all, but it was like, you know, the packet was like, don't try not to make it specific to Provo, Utah, you know.
And he came out and was like, Provo, what's happening? I saw your thing and blah, blah, blah. And what do you do?
It was almost immediate that I started laughing when he said that. And then it was like, don't be, you know, you could do jokes about your significant other, but obviously self-deprecating is better. You know, people take, he just one by one, I'm, you know, seeing the bullet points being checked off in my mind as he's going through his set. I'm like, did he read any of it?
Yes. It's funny you say that, because as soon as you say that, like, he didn't read the bullet points of the rules, and I'm like, there was bullet points and rule, like, I didn't read it either. I just knew in my head, I'm gonna do the family show that I do on the ship, and then this will get me. The idea was, if people like this, that'll drive them to my other material, and they'll learn about my stand-up. And I'll have a tape to get me even more work.
Yeah.
In you know, or in you know, like, it helps me get other cruise lines, so that I'm not beholden to just one, so I can work a bunch. Yeah. And then those things allow me to go be a real comedian, you know, also. Yeah. Not that that's not real comedy, but you know what I mean? It allows you the freedom to go do all the rooms I love that, quite frankly, it's, you know, there's just not enough money in comedy for people that aren't selling out places. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and here's a humbling thing too. Is like, so let's just assume, well, the Dry Bar is my best quality tape, maybe not my best jokes, right? Best quality. Right. So I have these clips. They're now from 2019. Eventually I'm going to have to stop using them for submissions to stuff like comedy festivals or whatever. But it's very humbling when you get those clips. They're fresh, they're new, they're less than a year old, maybe 2 years old, and you're submitting to comedy festivals and you get the no email.
Right.
I can't blame it on the tape.
Yes. Yes.
I'm like, oh, it's me.
Yeah.
The jokes.
Yeah. Well, you again, like, it's almost like you're talking about with the America's Got Talent thing. It's about, do you fit this box that we need to check? That's the industry, right? Yeah. So it's not, and the box isn't always hilarious, makes every crowd laugh. It's, what are they looking for? They already got a guy that's funny and white, and you know what I mean? And you know, and is got a medium build and has kids or whatever. So you know, if there's 3 of those boxes. Yeah. And then sometimes, right, at these festivals, it hurts you that you're clean. You know?
Never thought about that. I always wanted to do Big Sky Festival in Montana.
I sort of stopped caring about those festivals and stuff. Like after I won San Francisco, and then I did Laughing Skull a few times, and it's like, I'm really, the industry just makes me, like, it just constantly feels like begging the same people to tell you you're funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I just don't believe they know. I believe that they've been wrong over and over and over, and I've not that people that are successful aren't funny. There's a lot of funny guys and girls that are funny, and they force diversity on the thing, which is good. But I don't know, man.
You're doing the right thing. I mean, you continue to keep getting these random calls for people to put, you know, that want you on a TV show.
Yeah. I get to keep being a comedian, dude. This is so fun. It's like, I can't believe that this has been 25 years of being able to be a comedian for a living. And you know, it's the same thing every year. You look at your calendar and you're like, okay, I'm booked through January, and then I have the rest of my career off.
Yeah.
You know, and then stuff always gets you to fill it in, you know.
But it doesn't even take like to be a star of a sitcom or something like that to be, you know, when we talk about being a draw in a comedy club, there's so many, like, trying to think of some guys that maybe had a bit part in a sitcom, or not even a sitcom, could be a streaming show, like that just are draws now, and they 10 times their money, and they, you know, Orny Adams is an example. We've talked about him before, but he had on Teen Wolf. He is on this TV show Teen Wolf, where he plays the gym teacher. This is many years ago. Worked with him, and he was a draw. He was a huge draw. 100 people.
Don't be fooled. Like, you know what I mean? I worked Sarasota, and Les McCurdy told me, he was like, this was a couple years ago, and he said, you know who's got this the Facebook advertising and the social media thing figured out to sell tickets is Orny Adams. And I was like, really? And he was like, oh yeah, he came in here and, you know, a low guarantee and a high, you know, back end, and
bonus,
he made a lot of money because he's figured out how to do the ad. So Orny works hard, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At both being a great comic and making sure he gets to be a comedian and a draw, you know?
Yeah. So, there's another comic who's on Cobra Kai as Daniel LaRusso's cousin. He's a comic, and
oh yeah.
He's a bit of a draw. It's like, my point is, you don't really, you know, you keep getting those single drunk female, Miss Pat, you keep getting those things. You're well on.
Yeah, it'll be great. You know what I mean? And then you just got to stay in love with comedy and being able to keep writing. And that's what I mean. I don't stop, but it's, you know, it's, you just have to hope you keep being relatable to people, you know, because you see guys sometimes where you're like, what happened? That guy used to be really, really funny. And he's still funny, but it's just not the same anymore, you know? It's like an athlete, like
you think it's the same
Albert Pujols, and you're like, he's pretty good, but he's not Albert Pujols.
Right.
You know?
I've come across those guys that are doing the same. We all have jokes that last a long time, but I'm talking the same set, same 45 minutes.
Yeah.
From 20 years ago. And those are some of the guys that I'm like, they used to be funny, you know?
Yeah.
And I think they are funny.
I wonder if you were seeing them for the first time.
Funny. What's that?
I wonder if you were seeing them for the first time right now, if they would be just as funny as they were, or those jokes, they're just, you know, jokes move on, you know, like.
Yeah, I shouldn't say they used to be funny, because I talk to them off stage and they're funny. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's just frustrating to see that for them. And they kind of complain about the career path and whatnot. And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, you get stuck in trying to kill every time and not continuing to write.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Some jokes you reach a point, right, where you're like, oh, I haven't written anything that is better than what I've written in the accumulation of 20 years of doing comedy. Like it's harder to crack through that shell of the joke, like these jokes that, you know, work. And then you have to be willing to do the work to write new stuff. It's just,
I think the older I get,
frustrating, because there seems to be no connection to time spent on the page and quality of joke, right? You spend 3 hours and you get nothing, and then you're walking into Whole Foods and you write 3 minutes. Like, it's so weird.
Yeah, I think, and as I get older, I don't know if I'm becoming crotchety old man Johnson too early, but most of my ideas or thoughts or stuff I write down is just a long list of stuff that stems from agitation.
Right.
Being agitated.
Yes.
It's not like I see a situation and kind of come up with a funny scenario about it. It's just like, I mean, it's just today. I'm just getting a prescription, so I'm waiting online at the pharmacy, and everybody
use RX and get a discount.
No, I don't need that.
Oh, okay.
I have health insurance.
Oh, okay.
It's cheaper sometimes. So anybody over 60, it seems to me, that's getting their prescription, I feel like yelling at them that this is not a doctor's appointment. I don't know why you're there for 7 minutes.
Right.
Literally, here's my name, here's my thing. It's one, thank you. Any questions? No. it's a visit, and then I feel myself getting sweaty, like clammy, like I'm getting really
right.
and I just start staring a hole in the back of this person's head, and looking over at the person working there, and I just come home and write that it's not a doctor's appointment, and it's just stuff like that.
Yes. You're crotchety old man. Yes.
It's infuriating.
Mad at older people than you even.
Can you take this with horse tranquilizer? Didn't the doctor? I mean, it's like
it does come from irritation, Sometimes
it's not a mystery to them what kind of medicine they're getting. They're asking all these questions. Didn't you just go to the doctor and he told you this is the medicine you're going to get?
Dude, they don't remember. And their daughter told them, make sure you ask the pharmacist.
Yeah.
They're in the doctor's office and the doctor's like, and here's what you need to do. And they're just like, what? Huh? Okay.
Yeah.
You're right though, but I like to then sort of flip that back on myself. Like the fact that I'm in traffic and I'm like, is this your first day driving? Like, what do you mean, Tom? Every day you run into the same people at that 3-way stop sign that do it wrong.
Yeah.
Every day. Is this your first day driving? You're the one that gets mad at the same thing every day. That's the way it is. That's life.
Right.
And then once I can sort of make fun of myself about it, then in real life, I get less angry at the actual moment. It's an interesting thing, So
I can't turn it back on myself because I just come back to the fact that I hate. All my anger comes because I hate myself. You know what I mean? Like, really? Or not hate it, but like I'm not in the shape I want to be in. I'm not in the career spot I want to be in. I'm not in the place. So whenever I start to overanalyze it and come back to myself, I'd rather just keep my anger towards that person.
Yeah. Yes.
Why put the pressure on me?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you are the one making you feel all those things.
Yes.
So, you know what I mean? Maybe you should look into that, Danny.
Maybe you should be a couple more therapy sessions.
Yeah.
Well, man, I think we can wrap it up here.
We're gonna wrap this up. All right.
We can talk forever. You know that.
Yeah, I know. We could. This has been you'd expect when we're talking to be like me open up my joke notebook and be like, what do you think about this and this one, this one, but.
Well, we should do that anyway. I'm not recorded, but we should do that anyway.
Yeah, I like this angle of you irritated at people but you're just mad at old people. They need, that's going to be you. There's another guy behind you laughing at you, like writing the joke, like you should see how mad this guy's getting in line.
Yeah,
he's like rubbing his hands and like, what's wrong with other people?
And then it goes to the checkout line when I go, because I go pharmacy first and then food second. And then the lady checking out the person in front of me is chit-chatting with the customer who's already paid. And they're just, oh, my daughter lives in Rhode Island too. They're just going back and forth talking. And I'm just standing there with a thing of groceries like, hey,
can we move this crap along? I got things to do.
I got a podcast at 6:30.
That's funny. You're giving them the wrap up signal.
Yeah, it's almost like I want to yell, hey, why don't we pretend there's other people in the world?
Yeah.
Huh? Why don't we pretend?
I had that happen at a baseball game the other day when my son was playing, and these two guys, his coaches, like came and stood right in the aisle, like right in front of me and my wife watching the game, right? And it was warm-ups and everything, so I didn't say anything. And then as the game got to start, I was like, I just wanted to be like, hey, guys, could you go be selfish just like 10 steps to the left? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Oh man. I would ask them, hey, do you guys mind just every once in a while turn around and let me know what's happening with the game? Since I can't see it with you there.
But they were planning on moving anyway. Once the game started, they were just there hanging out because they don't, so I realized, I just spent 15 minutes sort of planning like how I'm going to tell these guys to get out of my way, and then I was just politely like, hey guys, can you? And they're like, oh yeah, we're going to sit.
Yeah.
Like,
I've always wanted to do like passive aggressive statements towards people, like in passing, and then just keep going. I don't know what that would make me feel better or something, like, up and down the aisles of the supermarket tonight, the guy actually turned his cart sideways, so it's literally blocking the entire aisle. Like he didn't scoot it up against the side of the
I can imagine imagine you walking by like, that's pretty good how you're doing that, blocking the whole aisle or something like.
So I kind of, he saw me coming, and then he kind of moved it a little, just enough. And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry," and I wanted to go. That's okay. Some people are selfish, and keep going. Or just some sort of dig that he was like, "Did he say? Did he
yes.
say?"
I do that as I walk around a ship sometimes, and I'll just go like, I'll walk through and go around, and I'll be like, terrible place to stand, and then just keep walking. And I pretend that they don't know where that came from, what voice where that came, but I will do that regularly. Like, this is terrible place to stand. You know, like, what are you doing? Like, or people would be refilling a water bottle, like literally on a thing where the sign, like they're pressing their thing up against a sign that says, please don't refill your water bottles here.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll be like, what's that sign say? Like, you know, I'll do stuff like that.
Dude, that's funny you say, what's that sign say? Do you remember me doing jokes about my mother? I used to have a chunk of material about jokes about my mom. And one of them was, I just brought, the reason I asked, because I added to them and I just brought them back and they're killing. It's a nice chunk now, where she loves to correct social injustices in public. She won't address you specifically. She won't talk to you specifically, but she'll just say something out loud so that everybody can hear it.
Oh, I remember this idea. She was at the grocery store or something.
Yes,
right?
It was 10 items or less lane. And the guy in front of her has, 20 items. I do act it all out. And at this, I changed it so that at this point I brought her to public. I'm standing behind her as an adult. And I'm part of this, whatever. And then, she's like, are we supposed to have more than 10 items in here? Or is this giant green sign wrong? Right.
You're like, Mom, that's not green.
I rewrote it, and because I have some new ones from her that are more recent to add to this chunk. So maybe that's where this is coming from, this whole passive aggressive statement thing, because I just brought that chunk back.
Oh, it's funny. That's how you can sort of tie, like later you can be like, because you're kind of complaining about your mother doing this and how embarrassing it is.
Yeah.
And now you're realizing, oh my God, you are your mother.
Yeah. I had an audience member tell me that.
Now you're like, I got to bring my mom next time I go to the pharmacy, so she can say that. Like, that's how passive aggressive you are. You don't want to say it, but you want to be standing there next to your mom now when she does.
Yeah, I farm out my passive aggressiveness.
Do you ever feed her lines? Like,
yeah,
Mom.
She has the earpiece.
Or just standing next to her, you're like, Mom, can you believe they're doing that? Like, then she'll come up with some way to say something.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
Yeah. That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
It's fun when a chunk of material, I think my mom jokes were like, there was maybe 3 back then, years and years ago. And I just kind of started adding bullet points to them whenever something, interesting or funny would happen. Like she just started this recently where when she tells a story about someone and she's trying to describe them to me, she does so with medical ailments or some sort of drama in their life. Like, you remember, she goes, I just saw, Ben. You remember Ben? His wife had the hysterectomy and his daughter got arrested for DUI a couple of years ago. I was like, what? You know what I mean? Like, what? Obviously, I made that up, but it's the weirdest thing. It's not like, you remember Ben, the guy I introduced you to at the pizzeria?
Right. It's with the pizzeria.
You know what I mean? But like, it's medical ailments or some sort of drama that happened with their life that she connects them with.
It's fun to go back to because like you try to abandon bits and then it's like, but that you write those bits because they come from your life, so, or they're an issue you care about. Mm-hmm. So that issue doesn't go away. It just sort of keeps coming back. It keeps, every 4 years we're talking about abortion again, or we're talking about a police shooting a minority, or like, and then the stories get real again to you and you're connected, and then it's like, oh yeah, I have that stuff. I don't know, I like going back to that stuff and being like, and adding to it.
Yes.
But the beauty of those bits and those ideas is those ideas are always with us, and sometimes they're fresh again, and then it's like you get to try to, because that's when they get the most laughs and they have the most impact, is when somehow it's in the minds of everybody.
You feel like you can make it better now. You're like, oh, this joke used to be great, I used to love doing this, and you can kind of expand on it, change the wording a little bit, and
like with Like for instance, with the stuff about being pro-choice or pro-life and the laws being changed and Roe versus Wade, it's like I've had material on that for years, but there seems to have been a sea change, like literally, like we've been doing comedy long enough where we remember, like if you were up on stage doing jokes about gay marriage and being pro-gay marriage, you were fighting a crowd that disagreed with you.
Right.
Right. And then something happened along the way where it was like there was a sea change of like, now 90% of the people agree that that should be fine and blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? And now
Yeah.
you're not going to find a comic up on stage complaining about they shouldn't allow it to cheers, right? That's just not going to happen anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's happened with Roe versus Wade and the board, because it's like, even on the show, I did a couple jokes about it that I've done for years, and it was like weird, like applause, like, oh yes, we're against that idea too now. Like, oh wow, this is so interesting now to be on the side of the audience, you know, that
yeah.
makes sense, you know, on those issues, because something about those is you're usually trying to do the joke that plants a seed in somebody that makes them think a little differently than how they did think, or you know.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. It was like, I think that's happened with this issue right now, you know.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was trying to think of why I don't have any desire to write, any interest or desire politically, any social issues. Just don't strike. They're not an interest to me. I don't write about them.
Right.
And I don't know where that comes from. I don't know whether it's I'm not that I want to. I don't even have a want or need to. But someone once asked me that. They were like, is it hard to? This was at a golf.
Is it hard never having anything to say about anything?
Right. Is it hard to, when you do shows like this, clean shows like this for the country clubs? Do you have a hard time removing anything about church or law, abortion or whatever? I'm like, I don't do. I don't know.
Yeah.
The best theory.
Neither does Ryan Regan. Neither does a lot of comedy. You know what I mean? So it's,
yeah.
I want to have jokes about everything. I don't like, somehow it's like, I don't want a topic to come up where I don't have a joke about it.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have plenty, but I don't know. It's just the way I want to write about everything. And then I had that early on in my career. I was like, I want to be George Carlin. I want to be Billy. I want to, you know. So I'm less sort of wanting that now, and more just like, I just want jokes, you know.
I wonder if it stems from my like pessimistic view that no one's changing anything. No one's. If I was to do it, I would think I would want to do it to change
people's minds and stuff. But people aren't changing their minds. I just want to speak my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and there's something to that too now, that I feel more comfortable in as a grown-up and as a comic. I'm comfortable with just like, I'm going to talk about the way I want to talk about it. You know what I mean? And so it's just fun to do that and not have to dance around subjects. You know?
I like your lighting is so much better than mine. It's like
I have like a photography light. When, you know, I used to have a web show.
The ring light?
No, it's a.
Oh yeah. I need to get that.
You know, that's how I used to light the so then there's this. Serena had those from doing photography, and she kind of put them around, and she was really anal about getting the lights right and getting rid of shadows, but this sort of just works for this stuff, you know. So
I need that here. Yeah. I like I think this, I don't know. I don't have any like yearning to write stuff that's socially relevant, but I do like making fun of or poking fun, not on stage just yet, of conspiracy theorists, because it was easy.
You mean like the election was stolen type conspiracy theorists, or 9/11 was an inside job conspiracy theorist?
I think I like to do it more now in the age of the internet, because before, when you made fun of them, you're like, well, wait till I get the word out. Wait till I get the word out. Now I'll give you a conspiracy theory, anyone you want, and I'll give you 100 million followers. You're not changing anything.
Yeah.
Nothing's happening with your conspiracy. Zero. And you have 100 million followers. So I think I find that hilarious, that the people that go through down these rabbit holes and conspiracy theorists, and
I was that guy with 9/11. I used to think that with Kennedy.
I remember
I did that with the Fed and with money, and you know, our corporate state masters, all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like and I realized like I did all this reading about money and how, you know, and economics and what methods work and what is capital and what is money and blah, blah. And I realized like, I know all this stuff about it, but I'm broke.
Yeah.
It's like an economics professor that drives around in an old Corolla. Like, what do you do? Like, you understand money, but you have no money. What are you doing?
Right.
You know?
Your
So,
podcast is Dumbest Guy in the Room. You do that by yourself?
nah, it's I have a producer that's there all the time, and then I have a rotating cast of characters. Greensboro, I live in Greensboro, and we have an unusual amount per capita of really funny acts. You know what I'm saying? Like it's I'm not making it up. They're good, and we don't really know why there's so many good ones, but there really are. And so I sort of have a rotating cast of those guys that come in, and like we talk about topics, or like this week I had a guy come in from Jesus, I can't believe I'm blanking on
But you
a
lead it?
nanotechnology, because a nanotechnology school opened and place opened in Greensboro maybe 10, 11, 12 years ago, back when nano was first starting. And I
Right.
remembered that. And so we got a guy from that institute to come in and sit down and talk to us. So I'll do stuff like that. I have a guy who's a stoic and has been studying stoicism, and I'll bring him in, or I have a brain guy come in, a brain professor come
Whose
in and talk
studio
to
is
me.
you have to rent the studio out or something? Like what, how do
They
you get a
have, it's a built
studio?
studio. They have a studio that they built, and it's amazing. They built me an entire set. And there's multiple cameras and angles, and
I
you know
know,
what I
and you
mean?
get to stand up during it sometimes too, right?
Yeah, so I stand up, or I'll you know, I can do whatever. Part of it's like I pace it. Part of it, like the idea was they want to capture, they just want to capture me, you know. So I don't do a lot of, to be honest, I don't do a whole lot of preparation on things or whatever, but it's about, it's just about me asking questions about things, and reacting to it. And I have everyday questions that I ask. I'm just instinctually curious about things.
Yeah.
So whatever we're talking about, I'll grab as many of the books as I have on my shelf that I've read on that subject or relate to that subject. Then I'll bring them in and throw them around the desk. And then that guest will come in, and some of my experience of what I think will come. I'll be like, oh, I read this in here, blah, blah, blah. But normally it's me saying, there's always smarter people than me in the room. How about that?
Yeah.
That's the idea, is I'm not going to tell you what to think, and here's what you need to know, and
Right.
this is what's going on in the world. I don't know that. So I'm just reacting to it, or
I
interviewing
like
people about it, you know,
I
things that
like
I care
how
about. Like
I
I
like
talk
how
about the environment, or I'll talk about relationships, or I have somebody in that just had a sex change, and it's like, I don't know really these people, but it's just me sort of interviewing them and
yeah,
being a smartass.
I like it.
Yeah.
I've seen clips, and I like, just now you did it. I like how whenever you're doing an impersonation of someone telling someone, you know, like, I don't want to be a person telling someone, that is Bevins.
Yes. Let them drink it.
Yeah. I
Yes.
want to be stepping over bodies.
Yes.
Whatever keeps the gas price down.
Yes. One of my favorites, dude. One of my favorites.
Yeah.
Well, it's good
He
seeing you,
has a
man. I'm
dry
glad.
bar,
Thanks for
right?
having me on here. By the way, I think this is a cool concept, talking to people about their dry bars. And although we didn't really cover the dry bar whole thing, but you know, I appreciate you having me on doing this.
Yeah, no, I loved having you on. Obviously, it's good to catch up. We should do this outside of the podcast and do some writing.
Of course.
We keep saying it, we just don't do it. I know you're a busy man, being handpicked by various talent agencies for different shows. So.
I don't know what it is, dude. I don't know what it is.
Oh, I got a drink from that well. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. Your TomSimmonsComedy.com. Is that it?
Yeah, find me on Instagram at T Simmons Comedy, right? You know what I mean? I'm updating my website by canceling it because I'm sick of the internet. You know what I mean?
With all the social media, why do we have a
A
website
website?
anyway?
Yeah, I don't know. Every now and then I get an email from Squarespace being like, "Hey, would you like to come do some work?" And it's like, "Oh, that's worth it," you know. But it's just, I'm 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 over the business of this. Like I'm tired of chasing an audience. Like, I'm gonna be on MySpace. I got to be on Facebook. Now you got to be on Twitter. You got to be on
Right.
TikTok. Like, okay, I'm on TikTok just because I'm old and running out of time, right? It's not about the app, but whatever. That's my goofy joke on it. But
I got you.
You know, I appreciate
it. Well, hey, just hang out for a second after we're done here, and thanks for being on Behind the Bar. I got to do is that the radio voice? Behind the Bar with Danny Johnson.
It's funny you call it Behind the Bar when it's dry bar. Like you're acting like a bartender. Maybe you're the bartender on a TV show. There's not real alcohol.
Yeah.
Good job, man.
Yeah, great way to end it.